Hello, hello. Welcome back to Kim Talks Resilience. I'm your host, Kim Hayden. Now, if this is your first time here, you're in for a treat. We get an opportunity to chat with amazing women from around the world. You never know where they're coming from. It could be, Canada, the US, Germany, Jordan, doesn't matter where they're coming from. Women who inspire. That is the goal, is that this is your 30 minutes or 45 minutes, or sometimes it's even 57 minutes of absolute inspiration. These women are leaders, speakers, creators, authors, entrepreneurs, women who are stepping into the space of banging the drum and making it happen. So before we get started, today's sponsor, please go check out queenofresilience.shop. That's queenofresilience.shop. Now, lots of fun stuff in there. You may find something fun like, mother hustlers get it done. Who doesn't need a bag with that on it? So speaking of mothers, let's just take a quick purview of who we have on today. Resilience expert, inspiring speaker, fierce leader, best-selling author, mentor, mom, survivor, advocate, limit pusher. Just a few of the titles that Karen Dean is proud to hold. Karen is an incredible motivational speaker who brings audience through her own personal stories of resilience and inspires with amazing sense of positivity. Recognized by RBC Canadian Women Entrepreneurs Awards as a nominee 3 times, Karen has operated successful businesses in many different industries for over 25 years. She has been a mentor to women in business throughout her career and has been mentored herself by some incredibly accomplished women in business. In 2020, she was honored by the Queen Pin Award by Queen Pins Halifax for her commitment to improving her community. Karen has published 2 books to date. We Are Unbreakable, real stories of resilience for women in Nova Scotia in 2020. It's a compilation book sharing inspiring stories from 22 women. And the second book, Fierce and Fabulous. Gotta love that, folks. Fierce and Fabulous, a self-love journey which provides readers with a daily practice to reconnect to their inner self and become even more successful. Karen's messages spring from a mountain of lived experience, and she is passionate about her mission to help people reboot their resilience and live their best life, personally, professionally, and purpose. She lives her own life every day. So let's welcome Karen in here. Let me close out this one window and we're going to bring Karen in. Good morning, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. Good morning. I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing great. How does it feel to hear yourself read about?
It never gets any less weird, I should say. It's so strange to have somebody else read all that about you, and to be sitting in the background listening. But I truly believe we need to kind of own our power, own our successes, and we as women don't often do that, and play small. So I'm honored and I'm proud that I've been able to do all those things. So thank you for sharing them.
Awesome. Well, and you do things give us a little bit of who you are and where you are, because actually you're in a really beautiful part, often not even talked about, place in Canada. So, and I know it only from a pub crawl and the graveyard where the Titanic people are. So I'm going to be fully transparent. So people, we're all going to learn together. Who are you and where are you?
I always say I've always been somebody's something. So I'm a single mom to 3 kids. In my previous life, I've been one of the twins. I've been someone's little sister or someone's daughter, but I am Karen Dean. I am a proud entrepreneur and author and speaker. And I am in beautiful rural Nova Scotia, Canada. So we're way on the east coast of Canada. I live in a tiny little community that farming and forestry are what's kept it going forever. Literally like 1,000 people live here, maybe, and most of them are probably over 60. So it's this really cool, lovely little community. I grew here. I moved back here in 2006 as a single mom to raise my kid, and yeah, it's incredible. I love the rural life. I have a hobby farm. I'm, kind of living all of my dreams all in one spot.
Hobby farm. Tell me, what do you have?
I actually rehomed 2 horses yesterday. I am downsizing. So I'm left with 1 horse that my daughter shows, and I have a miniature horse, a miniature donkey, and 3 goats.
No sheep?
No,
No sheep?
not a
No,
big
no,
fan.
no, not a big sheep fan. Aren't
No.
sheep just like a goat with a coat, though? Like,
Yes,
aren't
but
they basically the same thing?
you have to
Oh,
shear that coat. One more work.
there you go. Yeah, no, we had a whole conversation around sheep the other day. My daughter just got a new sweater and it inspired an entire new conversation. So, you said a couple things before we move into what you do. I would love to touch on the moving back with children. Um, I know that my sister personally just moved back to our hometown with her 3 kids in tow. And
Mhm.
she really struggled with that because she felt like maybe did she fail, right? Is she doing the right thing? Should she stick it out and fight a little harder? And there was like 6 months of her going back and forth with herself because she just felt like it was maybe one more thing that she wasn't accomplishing. And yet I'm watching her family now and they are thriving, right? It's just for her,
Mhm.
it was, I from the outside looking in, looks like the absolute best thing she could have done for her kids and for herself. Tell me about that journey because for a lot of people, they would view that as taking a step back.
I viewed it as taking a step forward because I wanted my kids, I needed somewhere where I felt safe and at home in order to be the best mom for my kids. And when you're going through separation, divorce, and mine, I've done it twice, we're not easy, and most of them aren't. And I think it's actually the best thing you can do to get somewhere where you're comfortable and safe. And that's one less thing you need to worry about. And your kids see that and your kids know that. And in order for them to thrive, they need a mom who's happy and comfortable. And like I keep saying, safe, because so many women are escaping unsafe situations. So
Yeah.
it's not, you really go in your pride. And, who's to say that the place where you up isn't a wonderful place and even better than where you used to move to? And for me, it was a real relief to come back home and to be surrounded by things I already knew, by things I already felt comfortable with, than to try to drag myself and my kids into a totally new situation where I didn't know anybody. So I don't think it's in any way a failure. And our egos tend to get in the way sometimes, though.
Yeah. And I think and that safety component, the one thing I pride myself on the most in my life is my family. And
Me too.
and it's the legacy that moves on beyond. And and if you can give your children, family, aunts, uncles, grandmas, grandpas, the neighbor who knew you growing up, what an awesome opportunity. What an
Yeah,
awesome thing to gift your children with is that stability.
for
So let's
sure.
go into what you do because you have literally a laundry list. It's like literally like a dozen deep of things that you do. Let's start off with, if we could, if you're open to it, I'd like to start off with your 25 years of entrepreneurship. Give us a little bit of backstory of what leads you to where you are today.
I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, a kind of entrepreneur, since I was about 8 years old. People in Canada, I don't know if it was in the US, but in Canada, we had this book called the Regal Catalog, and it had, wrapping paper and gift cards or like greeting cards and all kinds of things I'd probably look at now and think, my gosh, that's junk. This was a big thing back when I was about 8, and I had the Regal Catalog, and I would go to all of the neighbors and collect their orders and have their Christmas. And I started doing that at a really young age, and I kind of got addicted to being my own boss. And I took a business degree in university, and I really tried to work for other people a few times, and I'm really horrible at it, really horrible, because I liked independence. I like the freedom of being your own boss and making your own decisions. So I've had a very eccentric group of businesses over the years. I started with a restaurant. I was a private mom, a family restaurant, the little country restaurant that dinner is the big meal. And, Sunday at dinner time was packed, was incredible. I learned so much, and that was right after I got out of university. Then with my first husband / mistake, I had an auto repair and welding business. We used to custom build sailboat trailers, all kinds of cool things. Learned so many things. Husband / mistake number 2, we ended up in a business together too. It was a dairy farm. And now that I've been completely single and on my own, I'm doing the things I want to do. I always wanted to write a book. I always wanted to motivate people on stages. And I'm finally starting to do that. I also have an online clothing company. So I've done a lot of different things, developed a lot of different skills, can drive really big tractors or put on a ball gown. Like, I can do it all. So
Crazy. So let's go right back to Regal, which, by the way, I think Regal is still around, because
it
I
may
think my
be.
kids brought Regal catalogs home from school, right, for fundraising.
Maybe.
And I get that. I was a Girl Scout. And my Girl
Me
Scout
too.
leader, Nancy Green's. Yeah. So there you go. We did the so nothing like selling cookies that people can't have for 6 weeks. That's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's Girl Scouts. That's like real sales skills there. It's funny because being an award-winning real estate agent, that's where I went for 20 years. And I am surprised my husband and I actually survived building a business together. So, do you feel that having a business, marrying entrepreneur man, what was the best part and the worst part of being in business with a partner, taking out the marital trauma and issues, but the best part and the worst part of working with your partner?
The best part of both of those marriages was actually the business part. With both of them, we both had different skills. And I think that's important with any partner in business, is that you focus on what you're good at and your partner focuses on what they're good at. And we really rocked that as business partners. I did, a lot of the background bookkeeping, running the business stuff, and they were really good at the hands-on fixing the vehicles or whichever, running the actual farm out, getting dirty. I did go milk cows and drive tractors too, but my job was to do the things that grew the business from an office side. And I think that's important in any partnership, is to set some boundaries and do what you're good at, and don't try to run what the other person's job is. Set those boundaries of, this is your responsibility, this is my responsibility, and then work together. We also made it a point to talk business at certain times of the day, not to talk about business every minute of the day. You still need to separate yourself from the business and have that family time. So those were some of the good things about running a business. The worst things is it's really hard to separate from the business, especially when it's in your yard. It's really hard not to talk about business when you go to bed, because it's everything. It's your income. It keeps your whole life going. So One of the things I teach about resilience is setting boundaries. And that's the thing you really have to do. You really have to set boundaries. I got really sick of every date night we were stopping at somebody else's farm. Every family vacation was centered around cows. So you have to really set the boundaries and do things outside of your business. And I found that it's really hard to do.
I would agree. There is a very fine balancing act to work with your partner, because
Yeah.
I have worked with my husband for 25 years now. So
Yeah.
it's been it's an interesting journey, that's for sure. So let's
Mhm.
dive in a little bit as to what you're doing today. So we've got the backstory. And by the way, kudos on doing a restaurant. Just so people know, if you know anybody who owns a restaurant, be really nice to them, because it is one of the hardest businesses and has one of the highest fail rates out there. And especially
Mhm.
with food costs going through the roof and
Yeah.
labor costs going through the roof and everything. If you know somebody who has a restaurant, please, I'm just giving you a shout out. Be nice to them. They need a smile today. Trust me, it's not easy. So let's dive into.
And be nice to those waitresses, because that is one of the hardest jobs on the
Oh,
planet.
don't even go there, because I'm on you. I don't think you should be allowed to eat in a restaurant unless you've waited tables, right? That's
Oh, yeah. It is
I.
so
Yep.
hard.
Oh, absolutely. I was a waitress in Vegas, and I was a crappy
Oh,
waitress, but I was a waitress in Vegas. And I have always said, you know what? Most people who go out to restaurants and are rude should be banned from all restaurants, just like you can ban them from airlines. I don't
mhm.
think you should be allowed to eat in a restaurant unless you've worked in a restaurant.
No.
That's
Put them
just
back in the
my two
kitchen.
cents.
Put them in a kitchen for a busy shift to see how they like it. They'll never
Yeah.
complain again.
Absolutely, absolutely. Be grateful for what you get. So, uh, yeah. So let's dive into a little bit of how we met. Is that you're, as an author and a speaker, you're doing the right things. You're out there right now, networking in media fields, getting people to get your name promoted out there. But let's start with the authorship,
Mhm.
and take us through that journey.
It's quite a story, actually. I've always wanted to write a book. I've said for probably 25 years, I'm going to write a book someday. The name of the book kept changing. The theme of the book kept changing because it was always going to be a memoir. That memoir is still going to happen. But We Are Unbreakable was my distraction. This is true story. My distraction from my son going through chemotherapy. So 2020, as we all know, was a really hard year for everyone with COVID, kind of starting the year off with that. And then, so that was really hard because as a mom, and I'm a completely solo mom, they don't have a dad in their lives at all. That's another book. And I felt like I couldn't keep my kids safe from this. It really, really messed with my head because normally I knew what to do to keep my kids safe. And with COVID, we had no idea. Like, we had no idea what was happening. The media is spreading fear. Like, we had no idea. All of a sudden, you're locked in your house with your kids, and you're like, I love you, but you need to get out of my face for a while. So that was like March of 2020 that started here. And then in April of 2020, we had a really huge tragedy here. We became the home of Canada's worst mass shooting. And I lost a good friend. She was a good friend to many in that shooting. And it was really tragic too. My clothing company, I did a huge fundraiser and raised $96,000 families of the victims. And I ended that fundraiser when my son was diagnosed with cancer. Every parent's worst nightmare. Cancer is really scary. And because of COVID and the fact that he was 19, I couldn't go into the hospital with him for his treatments. I could go in for doctor's appointments, but I could not go in for treatments. So the hospital is an hour away from our house. And I was sitting in my truck in the parking lot. That's what I did while he was in treatment. heartbreak, like the most heartbreaking thing you can imagine as a parent is to not be there with them. And one morning I woke up, it was October 15th to be exact, and I heard my friend Gina, the friend that was lost in the shooting, I could hear her voice in my head saying, "You need to write the damn book." And it just all came together in my head was, I need to share the stories of women from this year with COVID, with all of the things we as women went through in 2020, that I think the journey is very different for women than it was for men, because a lot of women get thrown back into those traditional roles that we've fought so hard to get out of. All of a sudden, it's the woman who has to stay home with the kids because there's no childcare, but the man is still going to work. There's a couple women in the book who are farm women, who are farmers. They run the farm. They are the farm, but they can't have a 5-year-old in a tractor with them all day. What do they do when all daycares are closed? There's no school anymore. You can't get anybody to come to your home to do childcare because you're not allowed to have anyone in your home. It was just such a challenge. And I thought these stories need to be shared. So that people in the future, so our grandchildren and great-grandchildren can read it and go, wow, like you guys lived through that. Hopefully they'll never have to deal with anything like this. And so 41 days later, I had 21 stories collected and wrote my own as well. I literally texted or called people I knew and said, I would like your story of 2020. Can I have it next week? And I self-published in November of 2020, the 22 stories of We Are Unbreakable. They're so, it's anything I've ever done in business, it is the thing I'm proud of, to be able to share women's voices. They all wrote their stories. I did interview them in my words, in their own words. And they're just so powerful and inspirational. I'm so proud and of all the women who shared the stories in it.
Were any of the other women in your book affected by the mass shooting like you were?
I think really everyone in this province was affected. We're a really tight-knit, small province. So most stories mention it in some way, shape, or form. But there is another friend of a victim who wrote her story, but she also lost her dog right after she lost Gina. So she talks a lot about that. It's about loss, but the theme of everybody's is this really sucks, but it's still good. And there's the mom of one of the shooting victims actually shared a beautiful tribute to her daughter. The mom is a retired United Church minister. She's just a beautiful writer and a beautiful human. And she had lost her son to cancer 2 years before that. So she went from 3 children to 1 child in, I think it was 2.5 years. So she shared her story, and it's beautiful and so inspiring. You can feel love when you read her story, and you can, sense her loss, but also her life that she's had, and for she did get to share. So it's a really beautiful chapter.
So in doing this book, is the book kind of the anchor for launching your speaking career?
I was doing some speaking before the book, and then changed my speaking a bit. So I had started speaking in 2019, and my last live speaking engagement was March 7th or 8th of 2020, and then it was the 13th that the whole province shut down. So I had a lot of speaking gigs lined up that I didn't get to do, which was really disappointing. So that the book changed my speaking to be more focused on resilience and the tools that we all have inside of us, but maybe we forget. A lot of people believe resilience, you either have it or you don't, but we all have it. We just need to know how to use it. And it's like a muscle. I always say it's like a muscle. Yeah. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. The more you believe that you can get through the hard times, the easier it is to get through the hard times. So that's what I like to teach people now. And that's what the stories in that book really, really showcase is we can do this.
And I know everybody right now wants to know, how is your son today?
He is really, really good. He's
Awesome.
in remission. We actually just went for a test last week. So he's being followed very closely because it was a rare and aggressive form of cancer. So he's being followed closely by 2 different specialists. I'm really grateful for that. But he feels great. He is back to work. He always makes fun of me when I say this, but he's now almost 22 and he drives, I call it a giant dump truck in a gold mine. So if you see on the side of the road on big projects where they're building roads, those giant dump trucks, he drives one of those. And yeah, he's doing great.
At a gold mine? Is there gold mines out there?
Yeah, there's a gold mine in 20 minutes. There's a lot of gold in the ground in Nova Scotia. We are actually known for gold mines.
Okay, so that's kind of fun to drive a dump truck for a gold mine. That's actually, that needs to go on a resume. That's actually pretty cool. So
It is.
it is very cool. And so let's move into, now you are opening back up to speak. So do you find that this speaking roster is starting to fill back up, or do you speak outside of Canada? Do you go in person? Give us a little bit of what you're speaking, because a lot of women that I talk to do want to speak, but they don't know where to start and how to launch. Did you sign up with the Speakers Bureau? Did you, like, how are you launching this? Are you more kind of in the stage where it's, for travel costs, and you're not, because they say that statistically it's kind of like 2% of female speakers are paid female speakers,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of us are volunteering our time, where, when you look comparatively to men, right? So, but I mean, there's also fewer female speakers than men, right?
Right.
So give us a little bit of insight, because I know that this is something that a lot of women are thinking of. They want to be an author, they want to speak, they've had these amazing lives, but they don't know where to start. Share with us how you started, and where you're at, and what your journey is projecting.
Networking. That is the biggest thing. And that is how I've gotten every gig that I've had so far. I'm about 50-50 paid to unpaid. I have not done any live in-person events yet since COVID. They've all been virtual, but I've been paid to do virtual ones, which isn't always that common. And it's really about networking and making sure your name's out there and going on. Like we have the Center for Women in Business here that does a networking morning every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. It's a Zoom call. And I know we're so sick of Zoom calls, but you never know who you're going to meet in those rooms. And so I try to get into as many of those as I can schedule. And I wish I had some magic formula, but I've really worked hard at doing it on my own. I did not hire a speakers bureau. I just connected with people. You search them online and you join the right Facebook groups and you end up meeting the coolest people and like you. And then here I am. So that's really what I did. And I self-published my book. And that's a big deal that a lot of us think we need to find a publisher and go through all that process. I had amazing luck promoting my
Who
own book.
who
It's
did your editing and everything? Like, that's, I mean, it's not easy. You just don't, like, it's not like Canva where you just drag and drop, right? You've
right.
got to put all the proper. Who did you turn to help you edit and ensure that there was, like, no infringement or plagiarism or anything like that? Because I
Uh,
mean,
there
you're still
isn't
putting.
any risk of that in my book because it's their own stories written in their own
Okay.
words. So I didn't edit it like a real, professional editor would, because I didn't want to take the voices away from those. So there are some Goodreads reviews that bash it for, there's run-on sentences or things like that. But I didn't want to take that away from those women because they were spilling it. I gave them less than a week to write their story. And I said, I want your real voice. Like, you don't have to be a professional writer to contribute to this book. So I didn't want to change it too much and take their voices away. However, I did get another female-owned business that I actually contacted someone who I knew had self-published a book and said, tell me everything I need to know. And she said, contact Rebecca Wilson. She's the best. So she did my layout and file preparation for me to upload to Amazon. And I just promoted it myself. And I'm very, very proud to say I did not know how many you have to sell to become a Canadian bestseller. It's 5,000 copies. And so my book is a Canadian bestseller. And it's just, I'm so thrilled that that happened. But I did it all through social media marketing, through networking and calling people and saying, can my book go in your store? I even did that with Chapters. I contacted the buyers for Chapters and said, how do I get it in your store? Because most self-published authors have to go in on, they order from my distributor. It's not on consignment. So it's like in anything, it's advocating for yourself and putting yourself out there. And I think that's the key to getting anywhere in any business. But I may hire a speakers bureau someday, though, to get on the bigger stages.
Yeah. What's your favorite Facebook group for anybody out there who is looking at joining or finding Facebook groups to network through for speaking? What's one that you really enjoy?
There's one that's a huge group. It's hundreds of thousands of women. I think it's called Women Helping Women Entrepreneurs.
Oh, yeah.
And I often find speaking like gigs, virtual gigs through there. Often. That's probably the one I've had the most luck with. And they're not just Canadian, it's American, it's everywhere. So that's a great, great group that's full of opportunities.
Perfect. Okay, so let's slide into, I think you have lots of stories of resiliency, but let's talk about a moment of resiliency that without that moment, you would not be here talking today.
I'm going to go way back to January of 2001. That same son, because I have a son, I took him to the hospital because he was basically a rag doll. He was 7.5 weeks old. And after a long day in the ER and tap and blood tests and everything you can imagine, CT scans, I was told 4 days later, we were admitted to the hospital, but I was told by a team of neurologists that my little baby son would probably never be able to walk or talk because he was born with a permanent brain injury. So he still has that permanent brain injury. This is the same kid that drives the giant dump truck. And so I went home. I did like probably every parent does when they find out really scary news. And I cried and I cried and I cried. And back when computers took up your whole desk, I went on and like the internet like it is now, there aren't the same kind of search engines and things, but I found like a chat group of parents whose children had the same diagnosis as my son, which is called peri ventricular leucomalasia. I read a bunch of horror stories and something snapped inside one day because now he's only 8 weeks old. So babies don't do anything anyway. So I had no idea what I was going to face. But when reading those horror stories, something snapped inside of me and I said, that is not going to be my kid. And that is when I became an advocate. And that is when I became a limit pusher. And I talked to every doctor I could find that may be able to help. If every appointment I went to, I said, are there any other departments in this hospital that might be able to help? Could you please refer me? If it wasn't a good fit, we didn't continue. Early intervention is a program that we have here in Nova Scotia that a worker comes to your home and helps your special needs child. We didn't have one where I lived. So I called the government and said, why don't we have one? And I had one before he was old enough to be in the program. There was one in our area, and I was the chair of the board. So it's about pushing limits. It's about not being afraid, and it's about believing in yourself enough to do it, and in him. And I think that's why his cancer journey was as successful as it was. I mean, he had very few side effects from treatment, and he had the best attitude through all of it. Because whenever he had challenges when he was little, because he was late doing everything, all of the developmental milestones, he was at least 6 months later than the norm. And every time he would say, I can't, I would say, dude, there's no such thing as I can't. There's only I don't want to. And that's what I pushed him with for the first 6 years of his life, before he was almost 6 when he went to school because of his birthday. And he started school with no adaptations. He walked on the school bus like everybody else. I always say, I can't say it like this anymore because he's not a teenager, but I used to say he's as normal as teenage boys get, because if you have teenage boys, you know, they don't always seem that normal. But
I get it.
Yeah. No limitations, no adaptations. He went through school like everybody else. He walked across the stage at graduation. Like I said, he's a normal functioning human like everybody else with no restrictions. And I think it's about instilling that belief in your kids, for any parents watching, but also believing in yourself, to know that doctors can be really scary. And I actually fought doctors because he talked to me like I was dumb. He started every sentence with, this might be hard for you to understand, but. So I went to the Department of Neurology and I said, can you find me a different neurologist? I'm not happy with this one. And you have to push the limits. You have to advocate for yourself. And you don't need to have a medical degree, but you do have to have, enough guts to say, no, you need to explain this to me. You need to tell me what I can do at home to help. That made a huge difference in his life. And that is what got me through everything and has helped develop my resilience over the years.
It's amazing what our children can teach us.
Oh,
That
it
is
really
that
is.
is for sure. So we've talked about Unbreakable, and everybody will share all of Karen's contact and such. But so we've talked about Unbreakable, but you also have uh, Fierce and Fabulous, a
Yeah.
self-love journal. So share with me a little bit. When did this come out, and what is your hope for it?
That came out the end of March of this year. And it was another kind of spur of the moment project. That's how I roll. It came in my head. I actually bought a template. Woman who designed We Are Unbreakable for me sells templates in her Etsy store that you can take and put them in Canva and edit them and make them your own. So I bought a template and I thought, what are the tools that I have used to develop my own self-love? Because after my second divorce, I hired a life coach, and she made me realize that I made a lot of bets in my life because I didn't love myself enough. And I thought, what a gift to give to people, to have a tool that they could use to develop that love for themselves with just simple tools. Because the tool that I share in me was a simple thing. Like, I looked in the mirror every single day and I said the words, and it took me 2 years to be able to say this, but this was what my life coach gave me. I deeply and completely love myself. And that is the words I still say myself in the mirror 10 years later. And that's the gift that he gave me. So I wanted to gift mostly women to this type of a book, a gift that they could learn how to love themselves more. And it's been going really well. It's changed some lives and I'm really proud of it. And it's really, there's a bit at the beginning about my story, but then you do the same thing every single day. So you talk about how you're feeling, what you're grateful for, things you love about yourself, positive affirmations, and the things that I put on my website, which people can get as free downloads. acts of kindness toward others, which are things we can usually come up with really easily, but acts of kindness toward ourselves. And that's one of the keys to learning to love yourself, is to be kind to yourself. So on my website, I do have downloads of some ideas of how to be kind to yourself, also to others. But I think it's really important that we be kind to ourselves, and that we, the voice in our head is the one we hear more often than anyone else's voice. So make sure it's saying good things. And that's what we're all really guilty of, saying bad things to ourselves, things we would never say
Yeah.
to anybody else.
Yeah, we tend to treat those closest to us the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And those that honestly don't, a lot of people who don't deserve any space within our lives, we treat the best. We trip
Yes.
over ourselves to try and prove ourselves to them, or try to make them happy. And at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, they don't care. They
Right.
don't care. Your partner, your child, your neighbor, they do. They do
Yeah.
care. So, but if you aren't being kind to yourself right from the very beginning, it's very hard. Mine has always been, and I don't know how I started this way, but mine has always been, why not me? Oh,
Yeah.
why not me? That's
Right.
always been my, like, I sit here and it's funny how many people go, "Oh, you have grand ideas," or, "Oh, that seems," they'll, and it's always the language around, like, it's not achievable, you're dreaming,
Yeah.
right? I'm just sitting there going, "Why
Mm-hmm.
not me? Why
Right.
why can't I do this?" Right?
Yeah.
So, and that's, as a fellow mother of 3, you get it, it's like, and I had an interesting journey myself. But you touched on your website. Can you share with us your socials and where people can follow you, and socials, like website
Yep.
and everything?
Sure.
Awesome.
So my website is KarenDeansSpeaks.com. And I'll pop and you open that and it says join my community. And when you join my community, you get the link to download all kinds of free resources that can help you with resilience and self-love. And I'm adding to it all the time. Able to get those resources. And it's on social media. I'm also, just search at Karen Dean Speaks and you'll find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I use Twitter a little bit, but not a lot, but I'm there. So that's how you find them. Same username, Kane Speaks.
Karen Dean Speaks. Karen
Yes.
Dean Speaks, everybody.
She sure does.
Um, I
Not
thank you
everyone
for.
likes it, but
Well, I thank you for sharing a very raw and real approach to, and your book, Unbreakable. Unfortunately, we see these mass shootings in the United States quite frequently, and
yes,
I think that there's probably some stories in there that can help people through very hard times.
for sure.
Um, you know, Life's not easy. We're living in a crazy world of every of entitlements and
Mm-hmm.
disconnect and all these other things, and finding real people that you can relate to is so important. So I encourage anybody who's having struggles or questions and doubts, do reach out, take a look at what Karen's got going on, because just remember, there's 7 original storylines according to Shakespeare, yet no 2 voices are alike. And you may find
Right.
that your voice lines with Karen's, and she's a person that can help bring you through. Karen, give us a quote. What is a quote that is one that just resonates with you?
The Man in the Arena by Teddy Roosevelt, which Brene Brown talks about a lot, if anyone follows her. That is my favorite quote. And, it's a very long quote, but it's not the critic who counts, not the man or woman who points out how the strong woman stumbles or where the doer of deeds have done them better. The credit belongs to the woman or man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, up short again and again, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming. And I'll skip. It's like I said, really long. At the end, it says, "At worst, if she fails daring greatly," and that's what I like to point out as far as the setting boundaries and being resilient is the people who aren't in the arena getting dirty with you and getting muddy and sweaty and bloody and really fighting the fight with you. Their opinions don't matter, and they should not have an impact on your decisions and your life. And that's really, I've used that quote a lot to think, okay, does this person deserve my time and energy? Do they deserve to be in my life? Do I listen to what they have to say? And if they're not in there fighting the fight with me, I don't listen.
Well said. Well, good pick. Good pick. And I can
Mm-hmm.
see why that resonates.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you very much, Karen, for
Thank
sharing your
you.
time with us. Um, Again, folks, I'm Kim Hayden. This is Kim Talks Resilience. And if you feel that your resiliency is lagging at all at any time, do join us at resilientgift.com, where you can get our monthly magazine. And there's no fee. There's never going to be any sneaky renewals or anything like that. It's literally just my gift to you to keep you moving forward. And, until next time, you can find us anywhere along all platforms at Kim Talks Resilience, Resilience Series. Just find us, lean in, because we're here. There are amazing people everywhere. You just have
Mm-hmm.
to know how to find them. So until next time, I'm Kim Hayden.